Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother...
Welcome to the party, pal!
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Round Robin Edition. I'm Ralph Quattrucci.
I'm Sean Paul Murphy.
I'm Deborah Murphy.
I'm John Quattrucci.
And I'm Chris Coker.
Hello, people. What's happening? Podcasters, fellow podcasters.
Mother podcasters. Yes,
we have a special round robin. It's Bible epics. I made a mistake with this one, I think. I got too specific with the word epic. I think we should have just either Bible stories or Bible allegories. We forced this into a particular brand of movie, which I think they're all the same, but that's just my opinion. We'll get to that. We'll get to it. But before we get to the Bible epics, let's talk about what you watched. John, what'd you watch this week?
Well, it's funny. Everyone's familiar with the show 2.5 Men.
Yes.
I never watched it when it was on because I never saw an entire episode, but I think the few episodes, the pieces of them I saw were in the later seasons. And I always was turned off by it because it was just too raunchy for me. But I started rewatching them on Peacock, and I'm only in season 1. And I got to tell you, the show is freaking hilarious. Charlie Sheen is great. John Cryer is funny. And the two of them together, and the kid too. I mean, I find myself just laughing out loud during the show. Now, I know the stories, with Charlie Sheen's problems, like the 6th and 7th season. But so far, I got to tell you something. I really love it, and he was great in it too. The whole cast is really good, and it is laugh out loud funny. So that's what I've been binge watching, amongst other things. But I don't know.
I don't think that show's going to make it. But that's just my opinion.
It's not going to make it.
No.
What do you mean?
It will make it because Charlie Sheen has tiger blood.
I'm kidding. I know it made it. It made it for years and years and years.
But he was only on it for 9 seasons.
Right. And then it made it after he left. They tried for a couple of years with Ashton
Actually,
Kutcher.
John Cryer won an Emmy when Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, it's a shame because he's probably the best out of that group.
He was great. I mean, Charlie Sheen was really funny in it. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
He's Charlie Sheen he just went crazy. But Sean and Debbie, quickly, what'd you watch?
What'd you watch, baby?
I don't think I watched anything.
Well, I watched.
Good. Next.
No.
I know. Go ahead.
And along the lines of Bible, we were watching some of the other Bible epic choices. But additionally, I watched Richard Luster's A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Before you say anything, before you finish.
Oh, boy.
I did that twice, and I had the lead in that. I was pseudoless both times.
Yeah.
Zero Mostel.
Here.
Ring the bell.
Well, my favorite line is that when the slave girl doesn't want to be married to the general because she was from Thrace, and she said, his army came and raped us. And then they came back and raped us again. Then they approached and raped us again. And Zero Marcel goes, he raped Thrace thrice?
You love those rape jokes, don't you? You and your rape jokes. You just can't get enough of those.
Hey,
those lines are not in the play. I'm telling you now. Those lines are not in the play.
The actual thing is it was based on a ancient Roman play. Probably less quick cutting in it, though.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Buster Keaton's in it, too, in a rare vocal performance at the end as well.
But they got rid of most of the music. Most of the songs they just left out. It was a strange movie.
Is that a Bible epic?
No.
Funny thing.
No.
That's a Roman thing, right?
Yeah.
Sean, I'm so glad you get that new computer because
comedy tonight and what?
I'm so glad you just froze for about 15 seconds with your new computer.
Okay.
They had a few, but
now you're out of sync. This is amazing. The
play was so much
You're
fun.
unstable.
There you go. You are unstable.
All right.
Unstable. All right, Chris Coker.
I actually rewatched a little movie called The Chocolate War. It's based on it's a straight to video. It was made essentially.
Vampire. Is that a vampire movie?
No, it's a movie it's based on a young adult novel by a guy named Robert Cormier. It's actually has an amazing number of really high quality cast members. John Glover is in it. Ilan Mitchell-Smith, who you do recognize from Weird Science, probably most notably. He was the other guy, not Anthony Michael Hall, but the other guy. Adam Baldwin. There's some decent cast members, and basically it's a story about an all boys school who they have an annual chocolate sale, and this one kid, Jerry Mitchell, is told, not Jerry Mitchell, sorry, Jerry Renault is told to not sell the chocolates by this kind of shadowy group of students who kind of run the school from an underground level. But it's a really interesting movie. It's all about power, because there's the power of the Jesuit priests who run the school. Then there's the power level of the kids who are like kind of controlling things. And then there's, the average kids involved. Like I said, it's based on a really bleak book. That's a young adult book. And the movie itself, while not pitch black, at the end is very dark gray. So they changed the ending. Most people have a problem with that. I really like the changes that they made, actually, though.
Is it set in present time?
No, it's set in kind of almost like an 80s, has a great soundtrack, a great 80s soundtrack.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, well, like I said, it basically, the guy who directed it, it was his first time, was a guy named Keith Gordon, who's done a few movies and done a lot of television. He was actually the lead in like Christine. He was in a lot of movies.
Dressed to Kill. He was in Jaws too.
Yeah, Jaws 2 as well. That's right.
One of the kids. You recognize him as wasn't he? No,
he was at Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield,
right,
wasn't he?
Right.
Is that
I was thinking Bud
kid?
Cort was.
Yeah, that was him too. Back to School.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned Bud Cort shows up for like one scene in the movie.
Oh, really?
John Glover is fantastic in it as Brother Leon, a priest who's
Glover's
who's kind
great.
of.
That's one of those. That's one of those guys that shows up in a lot of weird stuff.
And that was the thing. It's funny. I actually watched the interview with the director with Gordon, and he was saying how like he literally called up John Glover because he had been in the theater, and Glover, they had some mutual friends, and he was like, "Hey, I can only pay you scale, but would you be interested in it?" He read the script and was like, "I'm in," and it was yeah. Anyway, it's a really interesting little movie. And
where did you watch it? Where can we watch it?
You can actually. It's streaming for free if you have like Comcast. You know how sometimes they have their own little section of movies.
That's not free.
Well, yeah, you're right. Technically none of them are free.
Right. True.
But
I'll
yeah,
check
no,
it
I
out.
saw it back in the
Interesting.
80s when it was on videotape. So
Keith Gordon's directed a few. Didn't he also direct the World War II film
A
where
Midnight
they took
Clear.
a break? Right, where they
Mhm.
took a break at Christmas, stopped fighting
Yeah.
at Christmas.
Right.
Something.
yeah,
Based on a true story.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's done a lot of interesting films.
he actually also adapted Vonnegut's story Mother Night, starring Nick Nolte. That was
wow.
pretty interesting too.
Cool.
But yeah, so that's what
Ralph, what are you watching?
I'm not watching. I'm going to highly recommend a podcast, not one of ours. Podcast called Dead Eyes. Have you guys heard about Dead Eyes?
No.
Okay, you're going to love this one. This is an amazing podcast. It's about an actor in 2000 who tried out for a part in the Band of Brothers. Right? He gets the part. He's over in England. He's an American actor in England. He gets the part. He gets a call from his agent that says, Tom Hanks wants you to come back to retest because he says you have dead eyes. And he wants to know if you're going to be able to, you have to try out. What do you call it? What do you call it when you try out? I'm not
Pre-audition.
Audition.
Yeah.
He goes in, does the audition again, comes out, his agent comes out and says, they decided to go in a different direction. So the guy lost the part. And he spent the funny line is he says, it's not like getting, I go to a record store to make myself feel better. And there's a big giant poster of the Green Mile. He says, if I get fired from Wendy's, I don't see the boss. I get fired by Tom Hanks, the nicest guy in the world. And I'm looking at this. Anyway, so the podcast is about how it changed his direction in life. He actually quit acting for years and years. And it's always bothered him that the nicest guy in Hollywood would say he had dead eyes. And it's a 3-season podcast. And on March 10th, he actually finally got Tom Hanks to sit down with him for an hour and talk about what this did to him. And
March 10th,
and
March 10th of this year?
This year. And I'm telling you, I listened to that one first, and then I went back and listened to his others, and it's a tearjerker because the emotions that come out of him and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was, it's just you gotta listen to the whole thing. But
Did he have dead eyes?
You have to listen to the podcast. But he he did some acting with John Hamm early in his career. So Hamm's on there, and they all talk about horror stories they've had about being rejected and stuff, and how and this literally changed this kid's life for 13 years. He worked at a bookstore. He just said, I'm sick of all this after Tom Hanks said he had dead eyes. And it's just a great, wonderful podcast. It's really, really quite nice. So you guys should check that one out. It's amazing. So, all right. So let's do this one. I'm going to go first. I'm going to change it up a little bit because I want to get mine out of the way.
Yeah.
get through
Yeah,
all
get
the
it out of the way.
crap I'm going to listen to on this.
Yeah.
And the thing that, when I spun Bible Epics, my brain was just on fire with all the movies I wanted to bring. And I realized we locked in by using the word epic that really it's supposed to be a sandal and robe movie, right? This is what, epic means. It's like huge. And I was just racking my brains trying to figure out. And then I landed on 2014's Noah, directed by Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah.
And I rewatched it, and I'm not a big Bible guy, and I was just going to say I don't think he is either, or he uses a lot of Bibles, because I think this is a crazy mix of
amalgamation of a lot of stories,
of a lot of different stories.
Yeah,
some from the Bible, some from not the Bible, some from different Bibles. And as all Darren Aronofsky movies are, I mean, his first movie was Pi. So,
well, you haven't said what the movie is.
I said Noah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I said Noah. Starring Russell Crowe, Jennifer Connelly, Anthony Hopkins plays Metamucil. What's his name? See, I don't know.
Metamucil.
Metamucil.
Yeah,
Metamucil. Like 900
problems.
900 years old. Anyway, and it's like I said, Darren Aronofsky's, all his movies are fever dreams, right? Requiem for a Dream, Mother. I really wanted to bring Mother, but that's a Bible allegory movie. But this one, it's a superhero movie. Noah is a superhero in this film. And he's crazy, and it's a beautifully shot film. That's about the best thing I can say about Noah. It's just some of the scenes are photographed in such a way that they're just gorgeous. And all the animals are all CGI. They're all fake.
Yeah.
Probably all the birds are all fake. And it's just a crazy film. And not knowing anything about the Bible, I've always been fascinated by the Noah story back in the days when we used to listen to Bill Cosby when you could. And he does that whole Noah. Yeah.
Noah.
What's a cubit, right? 14 cubits by 14 cubits by what's a cubit?
What's a cubit?
Right. So I've been fascinated with the whole story, and this one just goes off the. Have you guys seen it? Have you seen Noah?
Yes.
And tell me.
Well, can I say something about Noah?
Please.
Let me just say to our audience who doesn't realize it, I am in the movie business, and I do a lot of faith
How
movies.
could they not know that by now? Jesus, come on.
New subscribers, Ralph.
Their first, the Patreon people know.
Okay, the Patreon people know.
Patreon.
So here's the interesting thing about this Noah movie. Most people associate Bible epics with Christians.
Right.
But Aronofsky did not view Noah through a Christian lens.
Right.
Aronofsky viewed Noah through a Jewish lens.
Right.
As Judaism and Christianity departed, there's a lot of traditions associated with Noah and the Old Testament that are different than the the Christian versions of those. And a lot of the stuff that is in Noah follows those traditions, which he would be more familiar with. However, where the film really goes off the rails, this is a film they spent a lot of money on, and it made a lot of money. It probably went into profit, but I think Paramount put it out. I think it's at the end. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. That Noah decides that he should kill his family since everybody's a sinner.
Yeah, man, everyone's a sinner. There's no.
So he decides he's going to kill his family, which is totally unbiblical, and it totally makes Noah kind of a repulsive character, and they lost the audience there. I bet you if they had, and apparently Paramount was fighting with Aronofsky about making some changes, and that was the major change.
Well, when I read about it, they tested it. They tested 3 different versions that were not his versions, because they were super worried about the film, obviously. You put Christian films, you put Christian films out and you start messing around, people they don't want to show up, you get protests. And ultimately they went with his original version. They just said, okay, just put it out, let's see what happens. Noah's a maniac. I mean, and Russell Crowe is really good at playing Noah, because it's just, there's something that you're talking about the ending. I expected him to do what he said he was going to do. He says to his adopted daughter, she's adopted, who gets pregnant. and he says, if it's a boy, fine, we'll let the boy live. If it's a girl, we have to kill it because we don't want to populate it. We have to stop. Basically, he wanted to stop mankind with his group. So all guys, his wife was going to die off. She can't have any more kids. The boys can't have kids. And if this girl has a baby girl, he's going to kill it. And he said that. So the last half of the movie, it's like he's going to kill this girl.
Is that Emma Watson who played
Yes.
the girl?
And then
From
she
Harry
goes and
Potter?
has twin girls. It's like, oops.
That just threw
But
him right
now
over the edge.
it's good because those twin girls can now be wives to his two sons and they can start the world up again. And luckily it turned out and Moses was, but he was definitely driven and he's one of these people who believed God was talking to him and he just did what he thought God wanted. Now he was interpreting. Now this was no burning bush.
Right.
No
There was
burning bush.
burning bush
No,
in
I'm sorry,
Noah.
not burning bush, but
That's
he had
Moses.
it's Moses. He had fever
Yeah.
dreams in this one. And he dreamt that the world was going to get drowned and started his whole quest. And then they threw in another character who he has to fight with in the ark and stuff and how he brings all these animals in. Now, I guess in the Bible, it's only 2 animals per species or whatever. This one, there's scenes with all these snakes rolling in and elephants, and they put them to sleep with some incense or something. I mean, it's wacky. The movie is wacky, but it's gorgeous. And
What I like it. Well, Debbie, you want to speak up first?
Yeah.
Well,
please.
number one, Noah, he of all humankind during that time, he was the only righteous man. Now God chose him, to carry on humanity.
And he was
And-
500 years old. Is that true too?
Yes, those days prior to the flood, things were different back then because you had the umbrella of the atmosphere, and it was full of water. It wasn't like it is today. And
So a human being could live 500 years, is what you're saying.
yes,
And his father or his grandfather was 900. Well, his grandfather was the oldest person.
Methuselah was
The Methuselah.
Methuselah, whatever. He was 900 and something years old, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where I get lost. This is where I go.
Here, you must not have been to your catechism.
Yeah, you can say that again.
But Noah was a noble, righteous man. And
Not in this film.
No, that's why it was so egregious,
Yeah.
But can I
Did
say
you
what
see
I
it when it
like?
came out, Debbie?
Yes, and I was yuck. It was like definitely.
What did you think of the rock angel monster thingies?
Awful. So stupid.
I was beginning to think Michael Bay had directed it.
Wow,
Sounds like
This
really sounds like a biblical epic.
It is it is big. It is an epic, but it's Aronofsky, so you just gotta, I love the audacity, and I know you can pick at it. And if you're like, I started watching, Bible scholars talking about the film, everything wrong with, it's like that, everything wrong with this movie from a Bible scholar. Everything was wrong. All of it was wrong. But it's still visually stunning, and Aronofsky's a brave director. I give that guy a lot of credit because, like a movie like Mother, I can't imagine anybody else making that film except for him. And it's, we did that on one of our podcasts. That's an amazing film that I don't think gets enough love. And maybe Noah, I feel the same way. But go ahead, Sean. What were you going to say?
Well, I'm going to say something I like about the film is that usually
when it was over.
No, I mean, I enjoyed that too. But if you go to like Sunday schools and all, like Noah is this like cute story with the animals and this and that. And the problem is, and I even thought it as a kid, and I make fun of it in one of my own movies, is it's not a cute story. Like the world is wiped out, and only this movie by Aronofsky addresses the seriousness of the whole story.
It did. And there's
So
that scene where
I could have lived without some. The other stuff, I can understand the stuff that was Jewish tradition being in there, but some of the other stuff just didn't.
Well, it's funny. I think he's an atheist too. So he's raised Jewish and he's an atheist. But God, he doesn't call him God in the film. It's the creator in this one. You never hear the word God, not once. It's always the creator. And he's there throughout the whole film. That creator is there through the whole film. Moses is speaking.
Respectful.
Well, most atheists that I know hate God.
That's not true.
Most of them do.
Well, I don't know. How can you hate something that isn't real?
Well, have you ever listened to him?
Good point.
What'd you say, Ralph?
You can't hate something if you're an atheist.
That's my point exactly.
But that
How
doesn't
could
mean
you
the atheist
something
hate.
that doesn't exist.
You're right. You cannot hate something. So
But they do.
I don't think they do, but that's fine. We agree to
Some
disagree.
do, some don't.
They do, Blanche.
Okay. The most horrific scene, what Sean was talking about, the most horrific scene is when you watch the people drown, and not watch them, but you're seeing that what's happening to those people. And a lot of it you're hearing from inside the ark, and you're hearing screams, and it's everybody, everybody. And there's some pretty horrific scenes in the film. There's some goofiness. It drags a lot in places, and the whole idea of the sons needing wives, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. But just as a Bible epic, I think maybe in years, maybe we start looking at this a little different as the years go by. I have no idea, but I just wanted to bring something that was made in this century, and I thought this would be a fun one to talk about. John, have you seen it?
I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay, well, you got to watch it to get context.
I don't think
you got to
so.
watch the whole thing.
No, I don't.
No, but I think Aronofsky, like I said, the creators throughout the whole thing, and it literally ends with a rainbow. Someone looks up into the sky, and there's a rainbow, and basically saying the creator's there. He's always with you.
And that's from the atmosphere coming down, the water coming back in. And that's the rainbow. That was the promise. And that rainbow didn't happen typically at all until the flood, because the water came down from the heavens.
Okay. So, all right, we'd have to talk. I'm fascinated by, that's why humans could live 500 years, because of the water in the atmosphere. We'll talk about that one.
To block the UV waves.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Plus, they're taking Metamucil.
Came out in 2014.
Helped their
Noah,
colon.
Russell Crowe, directed by Darren Aronofsky. My favorite, Jennifer Connelly, played his wife. I could watch her do anything. So yeah.
I remember her in Career Opportunities.
Oh,
with
Frank Wally.
Right, Frank Wally. So there you go. That's my pick for Bible epics.
Wow. What a shock.
Let's go. Yeah. John, let's just get yours over with.
How many I want to know? Give me, what was your runner-up choice, Ralph? I want to know what your runner-up choice was.
What I wanted to bring?
Yeah.
Before
Tell me what you wanted to bring, because this tells you everything you need to know about you and the Bible. What were you going to bring?
Well, I was going to bring a Bible. Well, first of all, I like Bible allegory stories, right? So I was thinking about Mother right away.
Mother.
First one. But the one I really wanted to bring was a movie called The Devils.
Yeah.
Directed by Ken Russell, starring Oliver Reed. That's the one I wanted to talk about. But because it wasn't a Bible epic, I couldn't bring it. So there you go.
Okay,
John?
well, as everyone who watches our show and subscribes and shares it and likes it knows, Ralph and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum on a lot of things. So when we talked about Bible epics, the first one that jumped into my head was 1956's The Ten Commandments, directed by Cecil B. DeMille and starring Charlton Heston. You want to talk about epic? This is an epic Bible story. Obviously, Cecil B. DeMille directed it, and he remade his silent version, which I also just watched, which is a strange movie. Half of it is set in Moses' time, half of it is set in present day society, which was in the 20s. It was really strange, but the stuff in the beginning was amazing, and it he echoed it in the remake. Great cast. Yul Brynner played Ramses. Ann Baxter played Nefertiti, or I don't think it was Nefertiti. They had to change it.
Nefertiti?
Well, that's what that was. They were supposed to call it that, but I think it was Nefertini. I'm not sure. Edward G. Robinson. We're going to free the slaves. Yeah, we're going to free the slaves. See? Yeah. So that was an interesting choice. It was a great cast. And Charlton Heston, this was his second big movie after The Greatest Show on Earth, also directed by Cecil B. DeMille. And it was the movie, I think Ben-Hur was 3 years later, maybe. I think it was 3 years later. But this movie, it's 3 hours and 40 minutes. You don't get much more epic than that. And my memory of this movie is they used to show it in two parts because it was so long. And our entire family, we only had one TV. That's what we watched right around Easter time. They always showed it at Easter time. We always watched the two episodes. And I love this movie. And the making of it is an incredible story. Cecil B. DeMille had a heart attack in the middle of it, but he couldn't admit he had a heart attack, or they would have shut down the film. This was his passion project. They filmed at the real Mount Sinai. They did a lot of footage out there, out in the desert. But there's something about this movie, unlike, how do I say this, that Ralph doesn't roll his eyes. I went to Catholic school for a couple of years. So that's my, as a youth, that was a big part of our lives. We went to church every Sunday. I just remember the reverence of how God was treated and the reverence of how Moses was treated towards the second half of the movie. In the beginning of the movie, he's just a regular guy, right? A prince. And he makes some choices. But then afterwards, when he becomes the prophet, I just remember thinking I wanted to know more about him. And I guess because it was done visually, if you remember the burning bush with the flames coming out to the tablets, I just remember as a kid being in awe of that and thinking, is that really how God talks? By the way, the burning bush was played by Charlton Heston. There was a lot of controversy over who the voice actually was. Excuse me. The first time he spoke to him, it was Charlton Heston. The second time, it was another actor that came out. But I just love this movie. I watched it again, and then I watched the making of it, which to me, if you've seen the film, see the making of it, because that isn't a story in itself. But again, when I think of biblical epics, this is what comes through. Oh, one other little side note. H.B. Warner, who played Jesus Christ in King of Kings, which was Cecil B. DeMille's silent film in the 1920s. There's a scene where the old man is being carried as they're leaving Egypt. He's being held, and he's very frail. He looks all skin and bones. For people who don't know who H.B. Warner is, he also played Old Man Gower in It's a Wonderful Life. But he was in his 90s, very frail, and Cecil B. DeMille wanted him in the movie. And the only way he could do it was for the actor to carry him because he couldn't walk. And he was petrified that he couldn't memorize the lines. So Cecil B. DeMille said, look, you know what's happening in this scene. You just say whatever you want. And he actually came out with a beautiful line as he was coming out. So I thought that was really cool.
Okay, let me just jump in and reply to a couple things. Number one, while you were sitting in church thinking about Moses, I guess.
No.
That's what you just
I wasn't
said.
thinking. No, that's not what I said.
You said you're thinking about the reverence.
Yeah, I was sitting in church thinking about Moses.
I was sitting, God or Moses.
Right.
I was sitting there because that was the same year I saw the Poseidon Adventure. I would sit in that church and wonder what would happen if the church flipped upside down, where I'd end up. And two, I think this movie. Okay, I'm not saying I have great feelings about this film. Like, I enjoyed this film as a 5 and 6 year old child because it is epic and it's big. And when he parts the Red Sea as a 5 and 6 year old child, you go, oh my God, how did he do that? This is amazing. But as I got older and 20s and then 30s and I watch it again, it's like, holy shit, how did people buy this crap back in those days? And it's, again, I think we're back to the same thing we talk about, which is it just has a lot of cool movie stars in there. Like you said, Edward G. Robinson, what's he doing in a Bible epic? There's no reason for that, except people like to see him. And I just think we do this. There's movies as a child I look back now and I go, what was I thinking? And I think this is one of them. I think
the only thing I think of, look, when I watch this movie now, the only thing I think of, some of the acting is over the top. Like Ann Baxter's a little bit over the top, but the special effects still hold up. They still look good. The part in the Red Sea, the flames coming out for the tablets, I still think holds up. So I don't agree with that. I will say that with older eyes, I've gotten much more into the filmmaking process of how they.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That
okay,
I definitely
a lot of
gotten,
people,
but
a lot of people in this one.
Yeah, I mean, when I watch this movie, I still think it's an amazing film. I really do.
When I see it now, all I see is Mel Brooks from The History of the World, where he comes out with the tablets and he drops them and breaks them. Oi!
What I like about the film is one thing that really struck me when I got the Blu-ray. It's just the Technicolor.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
in the
beautiful.
old days, and this is true of most of the Bible epics, is, you know, they had people there just working the colors. It's like, okay, let's give this person this color dress, this color shirt, you know, this color robe. I mean, they just wanted to have a lot of eye-popping color on it too. And to me, that is really beautiful throughout the film.
And that's Edith Head. Edith Head was part of the
old today by comparison.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen this in an actual movie theater?
I have
I
not
saw
seen
it
this in
in
a
theater.
movie. I would love
You
to
did?
see this in a
I
movie.
mean,
theater.
I have to say, if probably in that day and age, if I had seen it in a movie theater, it would have been mind blowing.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think that these epics, and we really talk about epic, time, obviously, the length of the film comes into that to a certain extent. And especially like you talk about Technicolor and you talk about CinemaScope and all that kind of stuff and Cinerama, a lot of that was specifically a reaction. And especially this movie came out in what, 56, 55?
56. The TV,
56.
right?
It's a reaction to TV, which was in black and white, which was tiny. That's when people started really deserting the movie theaters for the first time. And then, so, people said, okay, we got a cast of thousands and we got to do these things. And you know what, we're going to do these epics. And I've seen the 10 Commandments probably a couple of times. And the same thing, John, I always remember it coming on Easter weekend,
Yeah.
like you said, in 2 parts. And, it was kind of, it kind of had that same attitude, not attitude, but almost like, a Christmas Story where you just kind of came in and you left and you came back to it, partially because it was so long. Because it was, you were having people over. It's like you didn't have time to sit there and watch, even over 2 days, 6 hours because with commercials and stuff. But
well, if you remember they'd show you the second part, but they'd take 15 minutes to review what happened in the first part before they showed the second part.
Well, this is the days when the Wizard of Oz would come on once a year. You'd sit around and
Right.
watch that. I mean, this was the days when these things meant something. Like there was a reason you wanted to sit around and watch it. No question. As a kid, it was.
And this still
fantastic.
comes out every Easter. This still is out
Yeah.
every Easter.
Yeah.
A couple of it was filmed in VistaVision, which is a bigger negative than what they normally use. So that's part of the reason why the colors pop. It was Elmer Bernstein's first full movie score, because the guy who always scored, and I'm sorry I don't know his name, the guy who always scored Cecil B. DeMille's films couldn't do it because he was sick. So with his, Elmer Bernstein was remember the dance number with all the Nubians? He scored that, and Cecil B. DeMille said, "Look, this guy can't do it. I need you to score the whole thing." And he did it. So that was his first really big break. And the music is iconic too. When you hear
it's
the
iconic
theme,
music.
it is. It really is. So it's spectacular. That's part of the epic too, I think.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's just a couple of tidbits I just want to throw out there. Debbie, how about you? You haven't said anything.
I love that movie.
Okay. So anyway,
Sean,
I'll tell you, I love the reverence that you experience with that film when you actually, think about God, how great He is, and I just love that film, and I watch it every Easter, and I'm really inspired to think about God, when I watch that film. It just gives you like such a awesome feeling to know that God is there, and here's the movie that pretty much, I think it's so true to the story.
yeah, well, and that was that's because Cecil B. DeMille, the research he did in writing the script. I mean, he did so much research, everything, all the names, all the places. But the thing I remember as a kid, and this was when I was a young kid when I saw it, I remember thinking, gee, is that what God really must sound like when He talks to you? And that's what I remember thinking. Now, yeah, obviously, as an adult, you think differently, but back then I was going, that's probably what it would be like, So,
Well,
this is not this God in Noah and in this film, my film and 10 Commandments, He kills a lot of people. God,
They deserve to die.
you're lovely, benevolent.
kidding.
How do you say that word?
benevolent.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Benevolent God killed a lot of people in both these films.
Well, they
Now,
were.
As
Can
a
I
child,
say
John, as a
something?
child, did you think
Really
about
not-
that as all these Romans or whoever are getting the Red Seas, killing those people?
you mean the Romans that were going to?
I don't know. Whoever's coming through the Red Sea.
The Romans
to-
that were chasing the slaves to kill them. Yeah, I remember thinking, I feel so bad for these Romans that they're not going to be able to
I'm
kill
just
the
suggesting
slaves.
a lot of people.
by the
You're
way.
talking about the Egyptians.
Egyptians,
The
Romans.
Egyptians.
which
I'm
one?
sorry, you're right.
They
The,
were
the
enslaved.
Romans.
Those people,
The Egyptians.
The Jewish tribe, they were enslaved by the.
Yeah, they were.
Right. So
They
they were
were
escaping.
terrible.
I understand.
They were
I
A
understand.
whole
But there's
group
a lot
of
of
people.
Right.
He freed the slaves. Moses freed the slaves. I mean, and if you believe the story, the plagues, brought down by God is what freed the
Yes.
slaves.
God actually, yeah, he's
So, but again, from a filmmaking biblical epic story, this is numero uno in my book, right?
Well, you look it
It's
up.
just-
This is the one they show. That's the picture.
Yeah,
they
I mean,
show.
this
I
is when
get.
you-
Listen, I'm not
So-
denying what epic.
and I
means.
still
I'm
like
not-
it. And Charlton Heston was great in this movie too. I thought he was great. He really
He's
was.
great
Very
as-
commanding presence.
Right.
Okay.
I do want to address one point that Ralph brought up because somebody once asked me that. He goes, "What about this God?" He goes, he's like killing all the bad people. I'm like, he kills all the good ones too. No one here comes out alive, So
yeah, we're all going to die. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
reality of it,
we're
we have
born to die.
You got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet.
Yes.
Chris, anything else you want to say about this epic film?
It's been a long time since I've actually watched the 10 Commandments. So, I mean, it kind of has that, really kind of, Ralph talks about this sometimes, he talks about the acting style.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in the movie that I chose when we talk about it as well. A lot of these Roman, or whether they're Roman epics, whether they're Bible epics or a mashup of the two, I think you have this situation where there was a desire to seem other or historical or more whatever. So the acting style is really, in my opinion, pretty wooden in a lot of them. I mean, in some ways, you have a guy like Yul Brynner comes off almost natural in this movie compared to everybody else, in my opinion, as opposed to a movie like, say, Ben-Hur, where Charlton Heston is a little bit more natural as a person. And don't get me wrong, when you're playing Moses,
Well, right. Exactly.
you wouldn't expect Moses to be like really loose and relaxed, and even in his, whatever, he's Moses. He's gonna everything out of his mouth is carved in stone and written down and saved for 1 million years. Well, not 1 million, at least a few thousand, right? The point being is that he is truly a larger than life character. So you can't necessarily expect someone to act like a normal man,
Right.
while playing that part. But there are, there is a kind of an artifice to all these films too. There's an artificiality there that, that scene where he's in the basket coming down the river, it's so obviously a soundstage, but even isn't the water it just feels like neon blue and the Nile, at least,
Well,
not
that's
before
right.
it goes red,
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's like, even when I'm watching Noah, which costume design and all that's pretty realistic, I sit there and I'm wondering, when do these people change their clothes, and do they ever talk? Nobody ever goes to the bathroom. It's like, and I know I shouldn't do that. I get it. These are
You
epics. And
definitely
I should
shouldn't
just
do that, Ralph.
I got to shut it off. But
How many movies do they go to the bathroom?
I was about to
Jesus.
say,
Holy
nobody went to the
moly.
bathroom in Pretty in Pink either.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying, don't you ever, like, when you see
Bridesmaids.
the same tropes, right? The same clothes all the time. The flashlights that never die, the camcorders when they're using them as light never die, stuff like that. I can't get, you're talking about filmmaking. This is filmmaking, right? So I'm just saying, I know I shouldn't be saying this stuff
You
because
shouldn't.
these
This
are
is
Bible
classic
epics.
filmmaking.
And it's the
Sesame
voice
DeMille-
of God coming from the
Sesame
bush.
DeMille died
John,
soon after this movie.
Build me an ark.
And
Take me away.
And this was his epic, and
It's a
He's-
classic.
great
I'm not
director. Great
I'm not
director.
denying it's a classic. I used to love watching it as a kid and look forward to it.
So let it be written. So let it be done.
There you go. All right, Sean and Debbie.
You first, Deb?
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
Oh.
go ahead.
Okay.
well, they call the story of Jesus the greatest story ever told. Well, I decided to instead watch the grooviest story ever told. The musical, the rock opera about the Passion of Christ called Jesus Christ Superstar. And I want to tell you, what a film. What a film. So it's set in Israel, but everyone's a hippie. And it's, to me, it's just a fabulous film.
This was a play first, right?
What?
Yeah.
Play
It was
play
play.
first? Yeah.
It was a record first, even before it was a play.
Oh, wow.
I like the original record soundtrack, which had some great musicians on it, best of all. But the movie is pretty the movie soundtrack is just as good. And, this movie came out, if you're an atheist, you may not be aware that between like 67 and 73, there was a huge Jesus movement, a huge revival swept around campuses, around the country. A lot of disillusioned hippies and all became Christians. There had been another one 100 years earlier at, nearly 100 years earlier in Los Angeles that started. So this really fed into that. And this movie is a theological mess. This is a film I think an atheist can enjoy because they really reduce a lot of the conflict to more or less strictly human emotions and human concerns. But what it has going for it is a great deal of passion. I mean, the people are very passionate. If you were growing up in the 50s and going to some church, they would have it's like in the biblical epics. It's sort of like in Ben-Hur or Quo Vadis. Anytime you see a religious person, sometimes it's from behind if you see Jesus. Mm-hmm. And everyone's a marble figure. But in this film, everyone is flesh and blood. And, you go to church and Jesus is God, but, they weigh heavily on the God thing. He's God and man. And Jesus Christ Superstar, on the other hand, weighs very heavily into Jesus is a guy, too. And it's funny because I talked to, it's sort of a guilty pleasure for a person in my position to really talk how good this film is, considering it makes a lot of really serious theological errors, at least in two songs. And but this was a gateway drug to a lot of people my age and older who entered Christianity. It was first inspired by seeing Jesus Christ Superstar, less so by its goofier follow-up,
Godspell. What year did this come out?
I think 71 or 72. Godspell came out soon afterwards.
Yeah.
How was this received by the Christian? The
back then, everybody liked it, because John Lennon had declared the Beatles more popular than Jesus.
Yeah.
So I think most people were happy that people were listening to this record, and the authorities were kind of losing power because there's that new Jesus movement was very young. People, they were like college age, high school age, early 20s, and they were more accepting of a rock musical about Jesus. And if you remember, they recently did it live on television, like about 3 years ago with John Legend playing Jesus, if I'm not mistaken.
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell you, though, the great role, and this is true of a lot of films, particularly lately, they tend to go with look at things from the skeptic's point of view. And Judas is such a great role. Judas is like the fabulous role in the film. He gets all the great songs and everything. And very passionately played. You understand what Judas is doing, what he's up to, why he doubts, and also it's very appealing. Of course, Judas doesn't end up well in the film, though he does get a reprise. He gets a post-death reprise. But it's just a film, and I always feel the same way. I always at least watch it, Easter week. And I always, I'll be listening to it usually for like a week or so because I really love the musical, and there's one story I want to tell. It was directed by Norman Jewison, who had previously directed Fiddler on the Roof, a huge Broadway hit, about Jewish life in Russia and all. And originally Zero Mostel, who had played Tivia on Broadway, was like the natural choice to play him in the movie. And he really wanted to play him. But for some reason, Jewison, probably because he was afraid Zero Mostel would overwhelm the movie or overwhelm him, went with Topol to play, that role. So, like a year or two later, Jewison is set to direct Jesus Christ Superstar. And he wants Zero Mostel's son, Josh Mostel,
play Herod.
to play Herod. So I saw an interview with Josh Mostel, and he's like, I had to go to my father and tell him I was going to be in this Norman Jewison film. And I was really afraid. So finally I told him, it's like, Dad, I'm going to be, Norman Jewison is doing Jesus Christ Superstar. and he wants me in it. And he said his father just turned to him and go, "Tell him to get Topol's son." But that was a great little star turn for Josh Marcel in that film too. A lot of people remember that as like the best number.
I don't think I've ever seen this film.
I haven't.
Oh, you should. It is the grooviest. It is the.
I keep saying that.
I
I
mean,
know
they
I know the
have tanks
songs.
and guns.
Debbie, have you seen it?
Oh yeah,
You're not a fan of it?
No, I don't like the film. I just don't like the over humanity of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's really upsetting to me. I found it very upsetting because I know Jesus personally, and he was a man, of course, but he was also God. So there was no.
But
I don't
wasn't he a
know.
man for like 33 years?
Seemed like 30.
No, he was from the big dawn of time. I mean, beginning of time.
He was a
time.
man for 33 years.
He walked the earth for 33 years, right?
Yeah, as a man for 30.
Yeah, as a man.
Incarnate, but
Yeah.
he was God. You know what I mean? He was God.
Yeah, but I mean,
He walked as a man for 33 years.
he
True.
did have human emotions too. You know,
Yeah.
there were times he got mad at
Yeah, you got angry.
angry, obviously
And
at
it's
the money
okay to
lenders.
be
and the
angry, and every one of us, it's okay to be angry.
Well, it's just to be angry when you're God. But when we're angry, we have to judge our own emotions.
But I mean, like even when the apostles kept falling asleep in the garden, you know, he was angry at them. He was
Yeah.
angry, you know,
It's
because he
mostly
was man as
disappointed,
well.
Mostly that
He was
thing.
very
I don't want to
angry
get
at the money
technical, but
changers.
Yeah, that's right. In the
No, I didn't like
marketplace,
it.
he flipped the tables over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Have you ever seen it, Chris? Have you seen
You know,
it?
it's funny. I've heard the album, but I've never actually seen I've never seen.
Yeah, it's same with me. I've heard the music.
You know, so
never
I know
seen
the
film.
music and everything, and I understand what you mean, Sean, in the sense that sometimes, and I remember as being, you know, pretty involved in my youth group when I was younger in my church and whatnot. There was always a big push for kind of, you know, like you said, like a youth movement about it, you know, just younger things that would get anyone interested in, you know, Jesus and Christianity as a whole. You know, there were a lot of things that we did that were, you know, whether it was going to an Amy Grant concert back before she went secular, which is funny because even her secular music was still pretty tame. You know, she just wasn't actually using the word Jesus anymore. But that being said, but yeah, no, I remember this. I heard the soundtrack and whatnot, but I've never actually seen the film. I might
I was
have to
too
check
young
it
when
out.
it came out. I was in Catholic school when this came out.
Well, I can't remember for sure if the nuns
So-
took us to see this, but they definitely took us to the arcade theater to see Godspell, which is the tamer version.
Day by day.
Yeah.
That's Godspell, or is that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's Godspell. And I tell you one thing, which you'll find really moving if you watch Godspell again. One scene only. If not, you know, even if you don't like anything else, there's a scene where the dance number ends on the top of the World Trade Centers, which were still being constructed then.
Oh, really?
And when you watch that scene now, you know, after 9/11, it's very moving.
Wow.
You know, I think the song
So
was,
how does Jesus Christ Superstar follow the scripture pretty well, or is it?
I tell you what, it follows everything very
No,
well.
Debbie says no.
No, can I finish my thought though?
I
It
didn't say
follows.
anything.
It follows the events very closely. It does not follow the characters' motivations. Basically, everyone's motivations make sense.
Well said, Sean.
Except Jesus, you know, because Jesus is like confused. He doesn't know but Jesus did have doubts. At one point, he's being overwhelmed by lepers and people. And it's true also that Jesus got, you know, retreated from the crowds on occasion.
Mhm.
And Jesus had, said, "Pass this cup from me," or as they call it, cup of poison in this movie. But Jesus always knew what he was doing. In this, he's confused. You know, so I think
And God is never confused about what he's doing. And he's always telling you straight up what's going to happen. He'll, you know, always tell the truth. That's the point of your film that you picked.
I'm sure, I think that's what Quo Vadis means.
Quo Vadis. What is truth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, And I love that film. One thing I did watch is that film, Chris.
Great.
We were even willing to pay $3.99.
Well, let's since you
Robert
segued,
Taylor is a
let's-
Roman.
Let's,
I love
let's
it.
jump to Chris's film, Debbie. And then
Yeah,
By
let's
the
do
way,
yours.
just ring the bell. I played Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof in 5th grade.
Oh, I can see that.
and
My
I
high
video-
voice. If I
and
were
I-
a rich
and I-
man.
and I videotaped it.
No, you didn't. You did not videotape that one.
Didn't I?
No, you started. That was 8th grade. You started videotaping.
Okay.
That was
Well.
5th grade.
Oh, sorry. Let's jump to
And
Chris's
never
film,
playing
Debbie,
Jesus
and then we'll
Christ.
come back and do yours.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yes, Chris, do yours.
Since you queue it up, queued it up. So, Chris, what's your
Yeah.
film?
So the movie I chose was Quo Vadis from 1951. So it actually predates most of the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, all of these massive epics. And the thing I noticed first was that it was in Technicolor, but it was not in CinemaScope or any kind of scope. It was a square.
It wasn't
Old
anything
school.
scope. But
It was not letterboxed at all. Which was interesting, and that's how most movies were back then. You watch older films, especially they're not in widescreen. And once again, this was something that was done primarily to differentiate the films from TV. But obviously, this is really, in some ways, it's really almost the prototypical or the prototype for all these other epics. It's got the cast of thousands. It's, hey, we actually shot some of these scenes on the Appian Way outside of Rome itself. Big epic scenes where Nero burns Rome, and all sorts of stuff like that. But it also suffers from a lot of those faults. It's got extremely wooden acting, in my opinion.
Well, okay, back up a step. We know the plots of all the films we did.
Oh yeah.
Well, what's the plot of this one?
I'll give you the basic plot is this is years after Jesus is gone, after he's been crucified. Peter and Paul are building the church, but it's not really about them. It's basically about a guy. I forget. He's got one of those classic. He's a Roman centurion coming back from Gaul or something. Marcus, somebody or another,
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that he comes back and he falls in love with a hostage slave girl, essentially, a young girl who was taken as a hostage. She was the princess of some northern tribe or whatever that the Romans defeated. And he becomes infatuated with her. He falls in love with her. Now she is a Christian. And so a lot of the movie deals with the time of Christianity under the rule of Nero, right? Where they really did have to hide, the whole thing about the fish, the drawing of the fish was a secret sign. So you could kind of communicate and you would know that one another were Christians, because back then, not only were they persecuted, sometimes they were straight up murdered, just for fun. Let's throw them to the lions. That'll be fun. And so this is a time, the book, I actually started reading the book like 20 years ago, but never finished it. Can't find my copy, so I'm not sure how the book compares to the film. But it's basically about this Roman general who slowly goes from being like a true Roman, believes in various gods and all this kind of stuff, and is changed and becomes a Christian.
Played by matinee idol Robert Taylor.
There we go. Yes. Deborah Kerr is in the film. She's probably the most famous person.
She's very nice.
Longest career. She plays the Lydia, I think. Anyway, so that's what it's essentially about. It gets a lot of it. It was based on a novel, and it's not based on any real events or anything like that.
It is based on real events.
Well, there are real events happen. The Rome burns, but whether or not Nero actually started Rome burning is a different animal. And Nero doesn't die the way he dies in this film in real life.
Does he play a fiddle? Is that Nero playing fiddle?
Yeah, Nero is a son who supposedly fiddled while Rome burned.
Played brilliantly by Peter Ustinov.
What a performance.
Yeah.
How old was he? He was like in his early 20s, wasn't he?
He was like almost 30. I think I read somewhere where they were basically saying during casting or whatever, he was almost 30, and they were like, well, Nero's 30. And they're like, well, we're not sure if you're old enough. And he wrote back to them basically like, well, if you wait much longer, I won't be young enough to play the role anymore. So Ustinov is great, but it is a great film in the sense that it has a lot of that, truly thousands of people in different scenes and different shots.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Technicolor just pops right off the screen. It does drag a bit though. At 2 hours and 51 minutes long.
Holy cow!
It's not obviously not as long as the Ten Commandments, not even by a long shot.
But it's
Ten
pretty
Commandments
close.
A whole nother
It's
movie.
epic.
But it's
that is epic.
it does drag a bit. It's one of those films that it could have been shorter.
And what is the point? Is what he converts to Christianity?
Yeah.
It's to Christianity
And they
against,
overthrow
against
Nero.
Rome.
against Rome. And the idea is I remember reading on the book jacket, it said something about, the early days of the terror and the glory of early Christianity. And it does, one of the things it does put forth, even though everybody's clean and everybody wears clean clothes and stuff.
Do they go to the bathroom in this one?
No, man.
No, you have no idea, huh? Jesus.
But the thing is that it really does kind of get at that early period of what it really must have been like to be, or at least, from a glossy Hollywood version, what it would have been like to be a Christian, to truly, there's a scene at the end where they gather up all these Christians, a couple hundred of them, and literally just let a bunch of lions tear them to pieces, and the crowd goes wild. They love it. And it kind of throws into relief a little bit about, and I'm gonna open up a can of worms here, everybody. It kind of opens up a little bit of that relief where you go, compare that to, the war on Christmas, and things like
exactly.
It kind of shows you like, what, at one point before Christianity was as established as it was, and in some places like in our country was the standard, it was a dangerous thing. It was a dangerous, rebellious thing to be a Christian, and to have this idea that peace was the way, not force, not Roman law, but the idea of turning the other cheek and all of that stuff, how radical an idea that was. And it's just
that's still to this day a radical idea.
Right.
Yeah, it really is. And in a lot of ways it is, but it's an interesting picture. Like I said, I think it's a little too long. It's kind of got some wooden acting in it. But there are.
You're recommending the film. You recommending the film?
I'm going to give it. Let me put it this way: if you like other Bible epics, I don't think you can pass this one up.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to recommend a Bible epic, then I would definitely recommend that, right? As opposed to Noah.
Yeah, and part of it is too is that
when you think of I'm just saying when you think of biblical epics, that's the kind of movie you think of.
And I really love the love story. I thought it was really.
Well, Robert Taylor was a very interesting choice for that movie. He's not someone you would think would do well in a movie like that, but he was good. He was really good in it. I liked him.
It was.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go on, Sean.
I was going to say this has a lot of the problems of those biblical epics. Is like when you have Peter or Paul on, they're very dry. They're kind of speaking in these and thous, especially Peter. But but the non-Christian stuff, particularly Nero, every scene, like the energy level, like gets ramped up to 11 every time Peter Ustinov is on screen.
But you're right. And that time frame, whenever they showed the religious people, they were always pretty stoic, right? And it's everyone else around them that isn't. So, but that's changed a lot, and for the better, I think, too. But for them, it was the reverence for the religion, I think, is why.
Well, you got to watch Noah, because Noah was he didn't do anything.
It sounds like
very stoic,
and he didn't talk to God; he talked to the Creator.
And people were
Dr.
partying all around
Frankenstein.
him. He just stood there like nothing, like a.
I like that. Good choice, Chris. I like this movie.
I'm never going to watch it, but I'm glad you brought it.
Good,
It sounds,
excellent. I'm never going to watch Noah. So
I might watch
even.
bits and pieces. But I don't know.
And listen, if you want to watch it for just a great performance, Peter, I think he was nominated for an Oscar if I remember right.
He was hilarious.
He was great. He was nuts, but he played it so well.
And all those scenes. What's the guy? I wasn't really familiar with him from anything else. Who played the general's uncle, who was Nero's trying to control Nero, Leo Gann or something.
Yes,
he was great
hilarious.
Too. He was really great, and his scenes with Nero are just hilarious. And Nero's got you look at like Peter in the film and you think fake beard, but Nero, Ustinov's got like a great beard, exactly looking like the kind that the Romans had,
right?
Kind of patchy in places and everything.
Yeah,
not as good as Chris's beard.
Well, thank you.
No, Chris's beard is solid.
Yeah,
it'll be a long time to grow it.
Yeah. That'd be
Nero
1 week
didn't
for
get to
me.
live that long.
Okay.
Sorry,
All
Ralph
right.
is a little upset. He's like, my beard's fuller than Chris's.
Look at this. I look like Moses over here.
You-
The
You
beard.
look like you have a
Don't
mo-
even,
Not the hair.
don't even
Not the
say
hair.
his name.
The beard.
All right.
All right.
Do we have another person?
That's me.
Yes.
Yeah,
I-
All
yeah.
right.
I chose Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston.
Oh, another Charlie
Great
movie.
movie.
All right.
And let me tell you, this movie, I love it. It's
Yeah.
so full of,
Another long one.
a very long movie about a guy, and he was kind of rich and lived in Rome
No, Jerusalem.
or Jerusalem. That's right, Jerusalem. Sorry. And it's about friendship between the what's his name, Marsala.
Stephen
Yeah.
Boyd.
And they were really good friends. And then one rose to power in the Roman army. The not the army, the
the army, the legions.
political.
He was a
political.
soldier.
But he got political. He
Yeah.
he became the leader of that region, and then their friendship came at odds when he wanted Judah Ben-Hur to back him up with the city, because during those times of Christ there was a lot of things going on, same like today, different groups of people, different peoples all converged into like a big conglomerate of unrest, political, racial, and I don't even want to say race, peoples, different peoples, tribes coming together. So anyway, the story goes that Judah Ben-Hur gets falsely blamed for trying to attack the ideology of the Roman,
The governor,
the governor. So he gets sent to a ship, to row on a ship, and
Becomes a slave.
becomes a slave, and his mother and his sister get thrown into a prison down in the hold of the really terrible prison. That's one scene that really freaked me out when I was a child. I couldn't imagine being in a dark, dank place for 4 years, 5 years they were in there. And just, their food was gone every day. That's how the centurion was guarding them. And that's how they knew. But it's just the story of him, coming to a place in his life where he gets rescued by God himself, and he knows it's God himself, because why would he get water and when he vitally needed it? Because he would probably, die. You can't live that long without water.
Well,
And-
again, do you remember when he looked up at Jesus,
oh,
and you never see Jesus, you see Charlton Heston's reaction to looking at his face.
yes, that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like he gave him water. And then when Jesus, when the guard, he says, don't give him water. And he looked at Jesus, and his face,
And he backed off.
I mean,
Yeah.
his face told all of, when we're right there, like, oh, when God's talking to you, right? When God's talking to you, and you might not like what he's telling you, and just think you think, and you go, oh yeah, I can't go there. You know what I mean? It's just that guard, when the look in his face, tells all that.
Remind me again, Ben-Hur is at the crucifixion?
Well,
How does
Jesus
Ben-
intersect. Yeah, he's there at the crucifixion.
Well, yeah, as Jesus is taking the cross to the crucifixion.
Right. That's when
He runs
That's-
across
But
him a
this-
couple times.
But
Right,
okay.
but this really?
Yeah, when
That's it.
when he gets the
Yeah,
water.
but no, I'm talking about the guard that was like way
Yeah,
back.
yeah. When the guard came over to take the water away from him.
Yeah, Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
So basically, Charlton Heston interacts with Jesus at two really crucial times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, as he was being crucified,
Yeah.
his mother and sister got cured of the leprosy right at that same scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
But but Ben-Hur, right when Jesus was given the Sermon on the Mount, in the story, there was thousands of people there, all milled around, and his voice just carried through this audience. And you see Judah Ben-Hur walking, past what Jesus was saying. He was just walking past it. And that's what we see, like all these people coming together. And here Judah Ben-Hur is walking. He realized his mom and sister were lepers and with Hansen's disease. And then, which we know now what it's called, but he's walking and, Jesus is looking at him, and that, God himself is watching each one of us and sees where we are in this big crowd. I don't know anything more poignant was that where you could see, and he sticks out in that movie, when he's walking away from the sermon. I love it.
And there was like this chariot race too.
Well, the whole thing ends up when he becomes a slave. It's a revenge story. He wants to get back at his ex-friend.
I remember as a child what I took away from this film. I remember chariot scene, obviously, the scene where he sees Jesus for the first time on the mount, right?
Yeah.
And the leper scene when he goes down and sees his mother. She takes her thing. I forget. There's a scene where
mother and sister have leprosy.
He's wrapped up too to get down into where the lepers are. So those are the three main scenes I remember. Obviously, the
no, he's trying to hide his identity. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to.
I'm not saying he had but he definitely was covered, right?
Because he didn't want his mom and his sister to see him,
right?
Because that would cause them pain.
So this is a film I thought about more than I did like the Ten Commandments. I think this one had a bigger impact on me as a kid than the Ten Commandments, and I think it has to do with. You're right. Charlton Heston's naturalistic acting definitely works. I mean, you believe that he's this person. And then by the time the chariot race comes on, and that was a pretty brutal chariot race, I just remember the spikes coming out of the side, people flopping around off those things.
Yeah. And somebody
as a kid, that's just amazing. It's amazing to watch that stuff. So
now when he gets this understanding that, Jesus has saved him, and his heart is so full of, gratitude at the very end when he's got his family, his mom and his sister and his wife to be. It's just so beautiful and wonderful. A restoration, a whole family was ruined, and a loving family. And then it's all brought to,
Is that when Ben-Hur and the family start singing Jesus Christ Superstar? At that, I forget. Is that the song?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's what I don't know how to.
Right. No, I mean, I out of the three, other than Noah, right? We'll throw Noah out, I guess. Out of these three biblical epics, well, four, including Sean's, Ben-Hur is the one that I would say thumb Yippee-Ki-Yay on that one. That's the one that I'd like to see in Blu-ray. I'd like to see that one.
I told you I saw that one I saw that at the Wang Center in Boston.
Right.
And Charlton Heston was there, and he introduced the movie, and it was beautiful. In fact, I think at that point had I seen the whole thing before? I can't.
Is that
remember.
Another long one? How long is that one?
It's long. Yeah, it's long.
I guess epic.
But there's so many. I mean, you said you only remember three scenes. There was scenes on the boats when he didn't have a name but a number.
I understand, but I'm saying the three
Roman,
that
he saves the Roman guy, and that's his redemption. And now he comes back as a citizen.
But you love I'm just saying what I remember from my childhood are those three scenes. Those are the ones that stuck.
Well, the chariot scene, the stunt man, what's his name, Ganut something. His son was Charlton Heston's double, and the scene in the movie where he flips over the chariot. That was an accident that wasn't supposed to happen, and he was able to right himself back up, and they left it in the film. And the father, who was the stunt coordinator, he thought he was going to get crushed.
Well, somebody did die. Somebody did die.
Yeah, wasn't the stunt man that filled in for Heston though?
You mean other than Jesus?
I mean, they had a Charlton Heston. They went through
Chris, don't give me that dirty look.
They went through weeks of chariot driving, because if you look at the film, Charlton Heston does a lot of driving in that, and Stephen Boyd too. That scene is an incredible filmmaking thing. That scene is amazing, the way that is shot.
Yeah, it's sort of like people are just waiting for that scene.
Yeah,
and I want to say a couple things. I think this was the second version they had made of them.
Yeah.
I think this was built on the same sets in Italy, the Colosseum where they had the chariot race. And Chris, I don't know if I meant to look this up, but it looks like the same Colosseum that was used in Quo Vadis when the Christians are being executed, because you can see it's a track. I think it's exactly. I think it is
Really?
the same set, because they built that set in 1925.
Yeah.
So I guess they kept it and used it. The 1925 version had Roman Navarro as Ben-Hur, and Baltimorean Francis X. Bushman, who was kind of a distant cousin of mine, as Masala. And that was a monster hit. And this is a time when TV was really hurting the movies. So they turned to God. They turned to this monster hit. You know, Ben-Hur was vastly over budget the first time, but it ended up built. You know, it was the movie that really built and solidified MGM.
And it won all kinds of Oscars, right?
But I mean, the 1925.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And then this one, I think, was nominated until Titanic. May have been the most Oscar nominations for a film.
It had the most Oscar wins up until
it did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is just a side note, but we've been to the Coliseum, and you know what strikes me is when we were there, and Quo Vadis, the lions, when they came out in the Coliseum, you could actually, I mean, you're standing there and it's just kind of breezy. Remember that day?
Yeah.
It's kind of breezy, and you imagine all those lions coming out and getting those Christians. Oh,
yeah, it's Sean, I think you may be right about the Coliseum sets, because you could tell when you're watching Quo Vadis that it's obviously the Circus Maximus. It's not the Coliseum. It's the chariot race, because you can even see the part of the curve in it, as opposed to the Coliseum, which was a giant oval. Which is where they mostly did most of the executions for fun.
Well, that's where they had the gladiators, and then the lions. They would have them down in the animal pit below, underneath where the gladiators were. The gladiators would be on the next level, but the animals were way down below.
Yeah, it's interesting too now, because when like you said, you go to the Coliseum now, there's no floor. You can see the substrata, and you can see where all of these different things. So they literally could have, they could literally drop like a thing, and all of a sudden a wild animal comes jumping out of the middle of the Coliseum floor. It was pretty crazy how they.
I do want to say something about Quo Vadis, because it's something that Ralph keeps bringing up. The Romans, they were very clean in that movie, but the Romans, bathing was a big ritual for them.
Yeah.
Like even if you're a working man to the emperor, everybody bathed, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah.
You conducted business in the baths. They had these massive heated baths, even in the winter. If you wanted to be loved by the people, you built them a new bath.
And in the Coliseum, as you go around, there's urinals on the outside.
Oh, good. So they went to the bathroom.
Yeah, they did.
That's a big deal.
Did anybody?
For Ralph.
Let's get back on track here. Did anybody see the Ben-Hur remake in 2016?
No.
I saw it.
What was it?
The Ben-Hur remake recently.
It's like seeing West Side Story, the remake of West Side Story.
Why not see it just for compare and contrast?
I don't remember it, but
it was a lot of CGI in it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all CGI now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, that was
practical.
This was an epic show we did.
It was.
This one went on quite a bit.
Oh my gosh! Look what time it is.
Well, listen, we had riveting conversations once we got past.
When you're talking about God and Jesus, we just keep talking. That's what we got to do.
Well, it's Easter coming up. Resurrection.
When? April. Okay.
Soon. It's the time.
What?
All
April?
Right.
He went to Catholic school. Okay, I'm just telling you. The guy went to Catholic school, St. Mary's.
But
I had a hippie teacher in 5th grade. Changed my life.
Mr. Trotter.
No, 5th grade. Mr. O'Leary.
What? Wow! What
O'Leary?
About Mr. O'Leary?
He's the one that taught me. He's the one that said to me, "Look, these nuns. I know they want you to pray to God and all that. If you don't want to pray, go in your car, go in your house, talk to God your own way. Do it your own way. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it."
So did you?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I can remember
that didn't work. Yeah, so
I can remember.
Go.
Listen, I can remember sitting in my bed, horrible nightmares about because what the nuns, what I learned, and I'm not saying anybody taught me this, but this is what I took away. If God forgets you, you die. So as a 5-6-year-old kid, I'm sitting in bed going, oh geez, God, don't forget who I am. Don't forget who I am. Don't forget who I am. Horrible, horrible nightmares, because the nuns would say, God has to remember who you are. So you got to pray to him every day. If he forgets you, you're going to die.
Oh, that's
And-
such a lie. That's
I've never heard
okay.
that. I went to
Okay.
the same school and I never heard that. That you're making that up.
John, no, I'm
You're
not
making that up. No
I'm not
nun ever said to you, if he forgets you, you'll die.
maybe they did. Maybe
No,
they
I don't believe
John-
that for a
John,
second, Debbie.
You know what? It's not
You know what,
fair
Ralph?
for you to do
God
that. Number one,
never forget
because
you,
I'm telling
Ralph.
you, I'm
I
telling
went
you
to
a
the
memory
same
that I had.
school.
Who cares? We had lots of different things happen
Ralph.
to us in the same house. You know that.
Ralph, I got to
Yes.
tell you one thing. God cannot forget his one beautiful son in you.
I understand.
Especially you.
I just worry that he sees everything.
He does.
Well,
And he
That's
still
the
loves you,
problem.
Ralph. Even with all the
There are
all the
certain
crap
things I
that
don't
goes
want
on,
him
he
to
still
see.
loves you.
okay with
I
that.
still listen, as much as an atheist as I am, the Catholicism is deep, deep in there because I always think someone's watching. I can't stand it. It's awful. So enough.
But you
I
got a
don't
lot of
talk-
cameras in you.
I don't want to talk about
So
it.
somebody is always watching.
All right, good. That was a good epic show
Yeah.
about epics. Not gonna lie. All right, so we're off the Ron Robbins for a little while.
Yes.
We're going back to the singlets.
Chris, you going to be here next week?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Nice.
Okay.
All right, good. That works out
Every
well.
once in a while, Drew, our old Drew pod master, wants to show up, so we'll have to squeeze him in at some point.
That's
Figure out how to
great.
get
It's
in there.
always good.
Pod
Yeah.
Master?
Another podcast.
Podcaster,
Oh,
mother podcaster. I probably said it wrong.
yeah.
So here we
All
go.
right.
But we'll spin for us. There's our lovely faces. Let's see who gets to. Oh,
Hey,
so Debbie, you
The
remember this
greatest
is you.
story ever told.
You bring whatever you want. That's the beauty. So think about it for a day or two. Let us know. Unless you already know.
I don't know.
Oh, Godspell?
No.
Day by day.
Noah?
Oh,
I think you
dear
should watch
Lord,
Noah and bring that with
No.
us. We'll dissect Noah from your point of view. Okay. Let us know what it's going to be. John,
Oh.
anything to say to our subscribers?
I just pray that they'll subscribe, they'll hit the notification button, and they'll like it. Okay. Our subscriptions are going up. We really appreciate that. Keep watching. We really do appreciate you guys.
God
watching.
willing.
And
God
also,
willing,
I
we
want
get
to
more.
thank everybody on Twitter. We get a lot more people retweeting us and liking our tweets. So I want to thank everybody on Twitter who's looking in.
Thank you.
I don't think I have the Twitter machine on my phone. I got to look at
Twitter
that up,
machine.
figure out what that is. So, all right, everybody have a good week. Debbie, let
Have a
us know
blessed week.
As you have a blessed, yes, have a
Yes,
blessed
thank
week.
you.
I hope God remembers who we all are.
Yeah, because if not, you'll die.
Done.
We'll never forget.
Okay. Okay. All right, everybody, have a good week.
have a good one.
Okay.